The tuna you're eating might not be what you think. Today we're exposing 6 popular canned tuna brands and revealing which ones are actually worth buying. Canned tuna has been a kitchen staple for decades. It's affordable, convenient, and packed with protein. But not every can tells the same story. Some brands focus on low prices, some rely on their reputation, and some build their entire identity around health and quality. So today we're ranking 6 popular canned tuna brands from worst to best, and finding out which ones deserve a place in your pantry. Let's start with number 6. At number 6, we have Market Pantry. For many shoppers, Market Pantry feels like a reliable choice. It's affordable, easy to find, and backed by one of America's biggest retailers. When people see a familiar store name on a product, they often assume they're getting dependable quality at a lower price. And that's exactly what makes store brands so popular. But with canned tuna, there's more to consider than just the price. Market Pantry is a private label brand, meaning the retailer itself does not catch the fish or operate the seafood processing facilities. Instead, the product is made by outside suppliers that produce the tuna according to retailer specifications. For consumers, this creates a simple question: how much do you really know about the fish inside the can? When buying tuna, many shoppers want to know where the fish was caught, how it was processed, and what standards were used before it reached the shelf. Some premium tuna brands make sourcing a major part of their identity. They highlight fishing methods, locations, and traceability. Store brands usually provide much less information. That doesn't automatically mean the product is bad. It simply means shoppers have fewer details when trying to understand the journey of the tuna they are buying. Another challenge with private label products is consistency. The label on the shelf may stay the same, but suppliers can change over time depending on contracts, availability, and pricing. For someone looking for the cheapest way to add tuna to their meals, Market Pantry can still be an affordable option. But for shoppers who care about transparency and knowing more about the seafood they eat, it falls behind other brands. That's why Market Pantry takes the number 6 spot on this list. Coming in at number 5 is Great Value Tuna. For millions of Americans, Great Value is one of the most recognizable budget brands available. Sold through Walmart, the brand has built its reputation around one simple promise: everyday products at affordable prices. And when it comes to canned tuna, that low price is the biggest reason many families choose it. Tuna is often considered a budget-friendly source of protein, and Great Value makes it easy for shoppers to keep it stocked without spending much. But lower prices can sometimes mean fewer details about what happens behind the scenes. Large retail brands are designed around efficiency. They work with suppliers who can provide products at a scale and price that meet huge consumer demand. The challenge is that shoppers may not always get the same level of information about sourcing, fishing practices, or processing methods. When you buy a can of tuna, there's a long journey between the ocean and your kitchen. The fish has to be caught, processed, packaged, and transported before it reaches the store shelf. Every step in that process can affect quality and consistency. Some premium brands make this process easier to understand by sharing more information about where their fish comes from. With many budget options, that information is much harder for consumers to find. Now, Great Value Tuna serves a purpose. It provides an affordable protein option for families, students, and anyone trying to save money on groceries. But if your priority is knowing more about the source, quality, and story behind your food, Great Value leaves more questions unanswered. That's why Great Value comes in at number 5. At number 4 is one of the oldest and most recognizable names in canned seafood: Chicken of the Sea. For generations of American families, this brand has been a familiar sight in kitchen cabinets. The famous mermaid logo has been around for decades, creating a sense of trust and familiarity. And that familiarity is powerful. When a brand has been around for so long, many consumers stop questioning it. They assume that because they grew up seeing the product, it must still represent the same level of quality today. But a long history doesn't always tell the full story. Chicken of the Sea operates in a global seafood market, where sourcing and supply chains can involve many different countries, suppliers, and processing locations. For consumers, the biggest concern with large seafood companies is not just the brand name on the front of the can. It's understanding what happens behind that label. Where was the fish caught? How was it processed? How much information is available about the supply chain? These questions matter because canned tuna is not just about taste. It's also about trust. Chicken of the Sea has built a strong reputation through decades of availability and brand recognition. But compared with newer brands that focus heavily on transparency, traceability, and detailed sourcing information, it doesn't stand out as much. This doesn't mean every can is the same or that consumers should automatically avoid it. It simply means that in a market where shoppers are becoming more interested in knowing where their food comes from, transparency has become a major factor. Chicken of the Sea remains a popular choice because of its history and accessibility, but when compared with the brands higher on this list, it has more room to improve. That's why Chicken of the Sea takes the number 4 position. At number 3, we have Bumble Bee Foods. Bumble Bee is one of the most recognized canned tuna brands in America. For decades, its yellow cans have been a familiar sight in grocery stores, and many families have been buying the brand for generations. But behind that familiar packaging is a complicated history. Bumble Bee became one of the biggest names in the tuna industry, competing directly with other major brands for a place in American kitchens. However, the company faced serious challenges over the years, including a highly publicized price-fixing case involving the canned tuna industry. In 2019, Bumble Bee's former CEO was convicted for his role in a conspiracy to fix prices, and the company later went through bankruptcy and restructuring. After that, Bumble Bee worked to rebuild its image, updating its branding and highlighting commitments to sustainability and responsible sourcing. But for consumers, the biggest question is always the same. Has the product itself changed? When buying canned tuna, shoppers are not just buying a brand name, they are trusting the company behind that name to provide transparency, consistency, and accurate information about what is inside the can. Bumble Bee has made efforts to improve its public image, but many consumers still look for more details about sourcing, fishing methods, and independent verification. Because in today's food market, trust is no longer built only through advertising. It's built by showing customers where their food comes from and how it gets there. Bumble Bee remains a major player in the canned tuna category, and many people still choose it because of its availability and long-standing reputation. But compared with brands that focus more heavily on traceability and detailed sourcing information, it falls short. That's why Bumble Bee takes the number 3 spot. Coming in at number 2 is StarKist. If there is one tuna brand almost every American recognizes, it's StarKist. With its famous Charlie the Tuna mascot and decades of advertising, StarKist has become more than just a product. It has become a household name. Many families have grown up seeing those familiar cans in their kitchens, and that kind of brand recognition creates a powerful level of trust. But a familiar name doesn't always tell the entire story. Like other major seafood companies, StarKist operates within a complex global supply chain. The journey from ocean to grocery shelf can involve multiple steps, including fishing vessels, processing facilities, and distribution networks. The more complicated the supply chain becomes, the more important transparency and verification are. Over the years, StarKist has faced criticism and legal challenges, including a federal price-fixing case that resulted in a major financial penalty. The company has also faced questions from consumers and researchers about sourcing practices and product transparency. For shoppers, the biggest lesson is simple. A recognizable brand name does not automatically guarantee that every detail behind the product is easy to understand. That doesn't mean every can of StarKist is the same or that consumers cannot enjoy it. Millions of people still buy it because it is affordable, convenient, and widely available. But when compared with brands that put a stronger focus on traceability, testing, and showing customers exactly where their tuna comes from, StarKist has more questions surrounding it. Its history and popularity are undeniable, but trust today requires more than a famous mascot and decades of recognition. That's why StarKist takes the number 2 spot on this list. Taking the number one spot is Safe Catch Elite. Unlike many traditional tuna brands, Safe Catch built its reputation around one specific promise: testing every fish for mercury before it reaches the can. This approach immediately separated the brand from many competitors because mercury levels are one of the biggest concerns consumers have when buying tuna. For families who eat tuna regularly, especially those who are more cautious about mercury exposure, this extra focus on testing provides an additional level of confidence. Safe Catch also focuses heavily on transparency. The brand clearly communicates its testing process and positions itself around cleaner, healthier tuna choices. But being number one does not mean a brand is perfect. Consumers should still look at the complete nutrition label and understand the entire product, not just one health claim. Things like sodium levels, ingredients, and serving habits all matter when choosing any packaged food. The biggest advantage Safe Catch has is that it addresses one of the main concerns people have with canned tuna: knowing more about what they are eating. Instead of relying only on brand recognition, Safe Catch built its identity around a measurable quality standard. And in a category where many shoppers simply pick the most familiar label, that extra transparency makes a difference. That's why Safe Catch Elite earns the number one spot among these 6 brands. After exposing the biggest names in the tuna aisle, it's time to look at the brands that actually get it right. These are the 2 options that stand above the rest. Best option number 2, American Tuna. While Safe Catch takes the top spot among the 6 brands we ranked, there are 2 other options worth mentioning for shoppers looking for higher quality canned tuna. The first is American Tuna. What makes American Tuna different is its focus on traceability and a simpler supply chain. The brand works with American fishing families and focuses on wild-caught albacore tuna from the Pacific. For consumers who want to know more about where their food comes from, this level of transparency is a major advantage. Instead of focusing only on marketing, American Tuna highlights the journey of the fish, from the fishermen who catch it to the final product on the shelf. The ingredient lists are simple, the sourcing story is clear, and the brand puts a strong emphasis on knowing exactly what you are buying. It may cost more than standard grocery store tuna, but that higher price reflects the focus on a more controlled supply chain. For shoppers who value origin, quality, and transparency, American Tuna is one of the strongest choices available. Best option number 1, Wild Planet Tuna. And the strongest option overall is Wild Planet Tuna. Wild Planet built its reputation around a simple idea: better sourcing creates better tuna. The brand focuses on responsible fishing methods, including pole and line fishing for many of its products. This method allows fishermen to catch fish individually, rather than relying on large-scale fishing methods that can increase unwanted catch. Wild Planet also keeps its ingredients simple. Many of its tuna products contain just a few basic ingredients, allowing the quality of the fish itself to stand out. The brand places a major focus on sustainability, transparency, and showing consumers exactly what they are paying for. Yes, Wild Planet is usually more expensive than many mainstream tuna brands, but the difference is that you are not just paying for a recognizable label, you are paying for a company that puts more emphasis on sourcing, fishing methods, and product quality. For shoppers who want the best balance of taste, transparency, and responsible sourcing, Wild Planet is one of the best choices you can make. At the end of the day, canned tuna can still be a healthy and convenient food choice. But the biggest mistake shoppers make is assuming that every can is created equal. Before buying your next can, take a few seconds to look beyond the front label, check the ingredients, look for information about sourcing, and choose brands that are willing to be transparent about what they are selling. Because when it comes to the food you put in your body, knowing what is inside the can matters just as much as the name printed on the outside. So next time you're standing in the tuna aisle, remember, the cheapest option is not always the best value, and the most familiar brand is not always the most trustworthy. Choose wisely, because the difference starts before you even open the can.